Hi, welcome back to the channel. We're going to continue our discussion on discovery writing by doing the next phase. So we've talked about the sort of philosophy that goes into discovering writing, why you would do it, why you wouldn't want to do it, the sort of attitude you have to have. We've discussed what the ways to kind of build your intuition so that way discovery writing kind of flows for you a little easier. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about what it's like to actually sit down and write a story using discovery writing. And I think everybody kind of approaches it a little bit differently. Dean Wesley Smith, who's sort of, I don't know if he's the guru of this sort of writing, but his writing in the dark, what he likes to do is he likes to start with a title. And he has like this little system that he will take half titles where he collects half of a title from old magazines and the other half of another title from an old magazine, and he just kind of sees which ones kind of click together for him in that moment, and then he just kind of goes off to the races from writing. The way Stephen King does his discovery writing, because he's also a discovery writer. What he likes to do is he likes to really think about characters, come up with an interesting character, and then put them in an interesting setting, and then just kind of see where the story flows from there. That's a little more akin to what I like to do when I write a lot of discovery writing. I typically have an idea of a character, even if I don't have like the full fleshed out version of the character. What I like to do is I like to at least have an idea of their attitude, of their voice, of where they're coming from. And mind you, I'm not really overthinking this a lot of times. It's just sort of, I just start sitting down and writing. That's why what I really like to do is write in first person, because then I'm almost kind of like a method actor. I'm sort of like trying to embody that character as if they're sitting across from you in a room and they're just telling you their story. Sometimes as it's happening or as it did happen or whatever. And so I kind of like to have a good grip on the character. Now, some people take a different approach. The old saying of that sort of 7 points that a character that all stories have. The first 3 is a character in a setting with a problem or a conflict or a situation, whatever you want like to do. I use problem just because it's vague. So a character in a setting with a problem. And so if nothing else, start with one of those and see where it leads you. So maybe you have an interesting character. This is really good, and it's one of the reasons why I like starting with a character is that readers like characters, and if they like characters enough, they'll want to keep coming back to them and they'll want to keep reading about them. And think about it, like Conan the Barbarian, Sherlock Holmes, Batman, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. We like those characters, and so we follow them. We also like the world that they're in, and so we kind of want to explore it through the eyes of that character. It's not just the world; it's that character's idea about that world that interests us. Sunnyvale itself is just another Southern California high school in which some weird things happen that apparently hardly anyone ever really seems to remember or talk about all that much. But when you run it through the view of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and I can't remember all the other characters. There's Willow and all those guys, Xander. Cordelia, who can forget Cordelia? We want to see that world through those characters' eyes. That's another reason why I think it's interesting to have that sort of put that front. Some people like to have the problem first, and I've had a few I've had a few ideas like that as well. One story that I'm working on now is a character gets a message that he should not be able to receive. That someone delivers a message to him that no one should know where he is at that time. It was just kind of this, he was going on a road trip on a lark, so he's not even 100% sure where he is, and then someone shows up to deliver a message. That's an interesting problem. One, it's like, what's the message? And two, how'd that person know that they were there and what's going on, and then everything that leads from that. So that's an interesting problem that you can really put in any setting. I'm doing it in a modern day setting, but you could just as easily stick this in a Western, or you stick it in a science fiction. It'd be really good science fiction kind of idea, fantasy as well. And they can kind of work with almost any character, because then what you can do is you can take this interesting problem and you can take this character over here that maybe you didn't know what to do with and put them together and just sort of like, okay, what would my character do in this problem? Which is kind of like what Stephen King does. Apparently The Shining was him coming up with the idea of this family, of the Torrances, the mother, father, and the son. And that was his idea of what if the father is a mean, failed writer, alcoholic, which apparently was Stephen King at the time, and they have this son that has a special gift. Okay, now we put him in a haunted house in the middle of nowhere. Let's see what happens. And that was kind of Stephen King's writing the Shining, and so I think as long as you have some sort of hook, everybody needs some kind of hook to get their fingers on the keyboard and to start typing. And whatever that hook is for you is fine. And this is also really good where you can kind of start using writing prompts. The exercises I described, like using the story cubes or tarot cards, and just kind of see what idea pops up from there, and then just go with it and just start typing and see what happens. Another one that I want to use more is using art. Finding random art online that I like, that I find is really cool and inspiring, and then just kind of write a story to that and just sort of let that be the thing. And it's not necessarily I'm going to write out exactly what's happening in that scene, because a lot of times the scene is some sort of action scene, or it's a pose, or some character. Sometimes it's a setting. But using that as the jumping off point of like, well, who is this character? Why are they doing what they're doing? What is this setting? What happened just before this scene? What will happen right after this scene? That sort of thing. Just using these sort of things just as jumping off points. Again, kind of following your intuition of like what sounds cool, what sounds interesting, and then just let it go. And then so that's getting started with a story, and then what you do to continue it is you just keep writing the next scene, the next sentence, really, as Dean Wesley Smith puts it. Just keep writing the next sentence. Don't overthink it. Go with your first idea, and if nothing else, just write it down, knowing you can always hit the delete key later. We'll talk a little bit more about that editing process in future videos, but just remember that the main goal is to keep moving, to keep that forward momentum going, and knowing when you're also just kind of tapped out. Using your intuition in this way does require energy. It requires mental energy. It requires mental focus. Depending on the scene that you're writing, it might even require emotional energy. I've written some scenes where I'm not feeling really good after I've written that, because I'm really in the scene, especially if I'm writing from first person. I am seeing that scene from that character's perspective. I'm writing about what they're feeling. Hopefully I'm doing a good job of conveying what I'm seeing and feeling and thinking onto the page so the reader is right along with me. But regardless, even if I'm not doing a good job on that end, I'm still feeling all this stuff. So at the end of it, you might be a little tired. And so letting yourself just keep writing the next sentence. Don't second guess anything. Don't judge anything. If it seems silly, go with it. If it doesn't even make any damn sense, go with it. I've done a lot of things in my stories where I'll put something down on paper and I'm like, I don't know what this means, but I'm going to trust my intuition and go with it. And then it turns out 7 chapters later, I'm like, oh, that's what that was about. That's why that character needed to say that thing, or that thing needed to be in the room, or that stuff needed to happen. Was because in chapter 7 that makes sense. Okay, that's great. And the wonderful thing is, and this is something Dean Wesley Smith talks about a lot, is if you the writer, don't know what's going to happen next in the story that you're writing, chances are your readers won't either. These well-formulated, well-plot-out sort of stories, we're very predictable. Pixar makes some really great movies. I haven't really seen a lot of their newer movies, but a lot of their older stuff They were just killing it left and right. But they had a formula, and the formula worked. Not so much because of the formula, I don't think, but because of the way they pulled it off. They were so good at executing the formula of, the music and the scenes and knowing exactly how to hit the right notes. And of course, there's technical geniuses, so they know how to make a character look like they're crying, even though they're really just a 3D animated sort of pixel. But they're really good at it. But if you weren't as good at them, if you tried to just run the formula, it's very predictable. And that's one of the things that a lot of people respond to, is the reason why I think Hollywood horror movies suck and independent horror movies can be pretty good, is because Hollywood likes the formula. Because they want to know, if you plug in A, B, and C, we will make money. It's like the underpants gnomes. Step 1, you do this. Step 2, step 3, profit. That's how Hollywood works. Whereas indies, they might have a different view. I mean, of course, I think everybody wants to make money and everybody wants to see their project be successful. But their first goal might be to create a piece of art, or to create a certain mood, or to subvert an expectation, or whatever. Or, if nothing else, just say, we're going to make this horror movie, but we're going to stick in a bunch of nobodies as the actors, and so you don't know who might live. That's something else Hollywood likes to do. Stick in Tom Cruise in a horror movie. Well, Tom Cruise is not going to die, because he won't let himself die in a movie. I don't think he's ever died in a movie. And so when Tom Cruise walks on the set, this is safe. He's safe, at least. So it doesn't matter all the scary music and the dark ambiance and stuff they put on. Tom Cruise is kind of being a part of the formula, and the formula is pulling you out of the fantasy. Whereas if you watch Blair Witch Project, those were 3 nobodies. Nobody knew who they were. Still, a lot of people don't really know who they are, because they all kind of dropped off the radar. And that's what made that movie so great. Was you had no idea what was going on, what was going to happen. And so if you let your intuition run with a story, it'll throw you some curveballs, which makes the writing part hard. And I guarantee I've been to this before, because I'm sitting there thinking, I've written myself in a corner, I have the character saying this, and they're doing this, and I don't know where it's going to go, and all I can do is write the next sentence. And that's where you listen to your intuition, and you write the next sentence, and you write the next sentence, and you write the next sentence. And surprisingly, eventually, you start to get a little momentum. Something about that made sense, and that's what needed to happen. I think I'm going to leave it there, because I want the next video to be talking about what happens when you're done. When you follow this process, you've got an idea from wherever you've gotten it, you sat down, you've written it, you're trusting your intuition, you're trusting the process, you're just sort of writing the sentences, you're going on the same emotional roller coaster as your characters and hopefully your readers. So what do you do when you finally hit the bottom and you type the end? That will be the next video. But anyway, I hope to see y'all again next time. Again, those links down below to my social media, to some of my books. If you want to read a mystery written entirely in the dark, then check out Memories in the City. That was a novel that I wrote, in which I had the idea of the opening chapter, and I just really liked that voice, and I really liked that kind of where the character kind of felt like he was coming from. And so I wrote the whole story, which is a mystery that I did not plot out when I started writing it. I did not know who did what or anything else like that. And so that'll give you an idea that, yes, you can even write mysteries into the dark as well. But anyway, I hope to see you next time, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.